follow the hint on gliding.
Here we go!
Luminous Electronic Symphony.
your voice.